I was collecting UFO photographs, been doing that for a long time, and probably a dozen years or more before this, and I had over 2,000 pictures in my file, photographs of UFOs. And I had been exchanging UFOs with UFO collectors, investigators all over the world, and I had a lot of contacts. One person that I was exchanging information with was Lou Zinstag in Switzerland. She was a multilingual journalist who published the first UFO journal in Europe in German in Basel, Switzerland. It was her area where this was all taking place, and shortly after Meier got back with the first pictures taken on the 28th of January 1975, they came to the attention of Lou Zinstag. She went to see him, and she found a poor farmer living as a guard on a property, a caretaker on a property that was not being occupied by the owners. And it was a very simple family, a man with a wife and 2 or 3 children ahead at the time. She talked to him about the case and about the pictures that he had been taken. And her first question, she was a devout fundamentalist Christian. And one of the first questions she asked him was about, did they have Jesus Christ? And he said, no, they don't have that concept there. They don't have their creation is not personified in our image. It's not like us. So this turned her off a great deal, because this flies in the face of her basic religion, and she's an older lady, and she didn't want to give that up. So she said, well, I like the man. He's a simple man, but he doesn't have Jesus Christ. The beings may not be all that good. But he gave her about 12 of the pictures at the time. And she took the 12 pictures back home, and she wrote me and told me that she had something very interesting to show me, and she thought that she ought to show them to me personally, that she was going to come to the United States in 2 weeks, and if I'd meet her at the bus station, she would bring them with her. So a few weeks later, 2 weeks later, I met them at the bus station. They called me from New York and told me which bus they were on. And when they arrived, it was Lou Zinstag and Timothy Good traveling together. And they were on their way. They were bringing the pictures to show me of the Meier case, 12 of them. But they were also basically here to do their own investigation of the Adamski case. And they were interested in investigating what could still be investigated of the Adamski case. And they were on their way to Vista, California, to talk to any of Adamski's old neighbors and relatives that might still be around there to reinforce some information. Now, Lou Zinstag had a very personal interest in the Adamski case, because when he went to Europe on the 2 trips he made there, she was his translator. She went around with him as his translator in the Netherlands, and when he went to the Vatican in Italian, and in German around the central part there. And she was very much impressed by the Adamski figure, and she kept a lot of notes on things that they were doing. She kept a diary and made notes on Adamski and himself. And they were over here to re-verify information, from which Timothy Good later wrote a book on Adamski. And he started with Lou Zinstag's manuscript, which was the notes that she had been preparing on Adamski and her experiences with him since his visits to Europe. And he had now passed on, died of pneumonia in New York, or in Maryland. And she was going to publish her notes in the form of her own book on Mr. Adamski, which was her personal knowledge of what happened. And a lot of strange things happened while they were in Europe. So Timothy is traveling with her and was a little bit stronger figure, and he started with her notes, then he added a whole lot of notes of his own, and then he took a bunch of her notes out, so that when Timothy Good's and Lou Zinstag's jointly written book came out, she still was dissatisfied because the story hadn't been told the way she wanted it told. So she sent me her original basic manuscript of notes on the case. The book that she wanted to write wasn't written. She still wanted to publish that book. So I took them, I put them in my file, and I had them there. I had them there for years. And when the poor lady died some years ago, I took them out and I looked at them, and I thought, there's really a lot of information here that has never come out. I'll publish them. So instead of trying to modify them or rewrite them, I took her notes, warts and all, with her handwritten corrections in there, photocopied them and reduced them to pages and printed that book you see in there, the George Adamski, Their Man on Earth. That's Lou Zinstad's book. That's her title. I didn't change anything. The notes inside are the same. Her editing errors are there. Everything. But it's her personal idea and feeling about George Adamski. Now, this was a problem for her also because in the Meier case, when Mr. Meier took an interest in any other UFO case or any other UFO figure, the Pleiadians would tell him, don't need to pay any attention to them, it's no good, it's a hoax, or it's being faked, or something like that. And Meier was interested in Adamski because he was popular at the time, and the Pleiadians told him not once, but a number of times that Adamski was a big fraud. They told him one time that Adamski didn't take the pictures that were attributed to Adamski, that they were taken by another woman and stolen by Adamski, or that he conned her out of them. And, of course, that's not entirely true either. So we found that the Pleiadians didn't always tell the exact truth. They told Meier what they wanted him to believe, whether it was really true or not. They were guiding his thought patterns, guiding his reactions, controlling everything developing him the way they wanted him to develop. So Meier never did like Adamski. He always thought the case was a fraud. They did this to a number of other key figures that we had substantial reason to believe were legitimate and real, like the Kelvin Rowe case and several others that involved spacecraft of the design that Adamski was talking about. Now, when they got to when they looked for the intelligence agents that Adamski called his case officers. When Adamski started taking pictures, the Navy at Miramar Naval Air Station out there in California came to Adamski and asked him to watch a certain part of the sky and take whatever pictures, whatever he got, let them know about it. They knew that he was in telepathic contact with an intelligence. One of the reasons they came to him. So he took remarkable pictures, but every time Adamski had a substantial contact and reported it to the Navy case officer, finally they assigned a second one so that if he couldn't catch the first one, he could get the second one. And then the Air Force would send an executive VIP jet out to Miramar Naval Air Station from Washington to pick him up and fly him back to Washington in a military jet. And they'd keep him overnight, debrief him, whatever they wanted to ask him and tell him, and then send him back in a VIP jet again the next day. So if his case was all such a fraud, and everybody knew it, why were they doing this? But when Adamski was in Washington, I hope I'm not digressing here too much, the reason he wouldn't stay in the Pentagon. If he's going to be overnight at any time, the Pentagon always offered him a place to stay, and he wouldn't stay with the military because he's afraid they'd do something to get control of his mind, put something in his drink, hypnotize him, or something like that. And so he wouldn't stay. He'd say, no, I'm leaving, and he'd walk out of the Pentagon, go across, take the ferry across to the other side, and go to the Rotifer's house. Madeline Rotifer and her husband lived on the Maryland side across from the Pentagon, and he used to go over there because he had known them from before, and he would stay with them. And this is what Lou Zinstag and Timothy Good were running down. And when they got to Madeline Rotifer's house and asked her about the movies that were attributed to Madeline Rotifer of the spacecraft visiting Adamski, Madeline told him, well, he was here one time, and we were having breakfast in front of the French doors with a patio outside. And she said, we were having tea, and the doorbell rang. She went to the doorbell to answer it. There were two men out there. And she let them in. They said they were there to talk to Mr. Adamski. She let them in, and he recognized them right away as two of the aliens, his contacts. They were dressed in business suits, looked like you and I. Walked in the house, and they motioned for him to look out the window, and this thing was flying out over the garden there, and they all went outside, the two Venusians, Adamski and Madeline Rotifer. And as she went out, she grabbed the camera off the shelf and was trying to film it, but she was shaking so bad, Adamski reached over and says, here, let me do that. He took it and he filmed the pictures, the footage that you see if you've ever seen it, and handed it back to her and said, there. So those pictures were taken by Adamski in front of two alien men standing there watching the whole thing at that time. So the Adamski case can't be written off that easily. There's a whole lot more to this, and this is what Timothy Good and Lou Zinstag were checking out and following up on when they came here on the Meier case.